This ain't the DC I swore to protect. Streets are crawling. The president's a zombie, hauling my gear on a chain like a damn pack mule. I'm still breathing, still shooting, but whatever's out there, it's changing. If I'm making it out, I gotta move fast and hit harder. Tunnel rats. The tunnel stank like rotting meat left in a microwave, damp, narrow, pitch black. The kind of place you only entered if the world above was already dead. James swept his flashlight in one hand, M4 clutched in the other. Behind him, a young Marine named Tolly kept his pistol aimed into the darkness, boots splashing in inches of sewer water. They were deep under the streets now, beneath the National Archives, trying to reach the metro tunnels. Above ground had been suicide. A scream echoed, not a human one. James froze. The beam of light sliced across brick, rusted pipes, and then eyes. Pale white ones, a face like peeled skin. A zombie crawled upside down along the ceiling like a spider, fast, twitching, hungry. Contact, James barked. He opened fire, 3-round burst. Muzzle flash lit the tunnel like lightning in a graveyard. Brains slapped the wall behind it. Then silence for about 5 seconds. Then came the horde. They poured from the left and right bends of the tunnel, maybe 20, maybe more. Their growls echoed into shrieks, feet slapping the wet stone, some crawling like animals, others limping with their mouths wide open.
"Fall back!" James yelled.
He pivoted and dropped 2 more with clean headshots. Tolly stumbled on wet concrete but kept firing, emptying his clip into a pack charging from the left. Blood splashed the walls, but the rest didn't stop.
"Grenade!" James shouted.
He pulled one from his vest, yanked the pin with his teeth and chucked it toward the closest group. Boom! Water and gore rained from the ceiling. James didn't look back. Go, go! They reached a junction where 4 pipes met. A rusted ladder led up to a hatch. James leapt for it, slamming his rifle over his shoulder. "Hurry," Tolly said, covering the tunnel as more infected charged. James spun the hatch wheel hard. It shrieked like a dying animal before unlocking. He shoved it open and light spilled down. Sunlight, finally. "Climb!" Tolly went first, scrambling up the ladder as James fired 3 more shots down the tunnel, dropping another crawler that was already halfway up the wall. "Clear!" James climbed up behind him and slammed the hatch shut just as hands began beating on the metal from below. They were inside a maintenance shed near the old Judiciary Square station. The metro entrance was blocked off by a collapsed ceiling and 2 burned-out cop cars stacked like barricades. "Jesus," Tolly breathed, "this city's gone." "No kidding," James said. He looked around. The open street ahead led straight to Union Station, their next target. There was a military drop point rumored to be there, gear, ammo, and survivors. "Let's move." They stayed low, weaving between abandoned cars. James motioned to pause behind a burned-out food truck. Across the intersection, a group of zombies clustered around something. A corpse or maybe a still-living man twitching in agony. James raised his rifle. Pop, pop, pop. Each shot found a head. The infected dropped like meat puppets having their strings cut. The last one turned and snarled, then charged. But James took 2 steps forward and sent a round through its forehead, point blank. "Clear," he said. Tolly looked shaken but nodded. They approached the body. It was a woman, black tactical vest. She was still breathing, barely. Her throat was torn, her eyes glazed. James dropped to one knee. "You bit?" She coughed. "No, sliced on glass, not them." He checked. It was a deep gash, but no bite marks. "Hang in there. We'll get you to the evac." She coughed blood. "No time, they're everywhere." Then her body stiffened and went still. Tolly swore. James stood up, jaw clenched. "We keep moving." They cut across a pharmacy parking lot. Inside, zombies staggered behind broken glass doors, clawing at the frames. James and Tolly ignored them. Then came a sound like thunder. "Helicopter!" They both froze. Looking up, a military chopper tore across the sky, heading north. It was trailing smoke. Behind it, 2 other helicopters followed, one flaming, the other spinning like it was hit. All 3 crashed somewhere near Capitol Hill. James shook his head. "That was our backup." Tolly sighed. "Then what now?" James reloaded. "We don't wait for help. We become it." Gunfire echoed from ahead. They sprinted toward Union Station, and that's when they saw it. The square crawling with the infected, blood on the windows, screams echoing from inside the terminal. James turned to Tali. "You still got grenades?" "2. Then we make a hole. Pressure points." I kicked the service door open with my shoulder and ducked into the narrow kitchen hallway. Behind me, the echo of moaning had grown into a hungry chorus. Their feet scraped across the marble like wet mops. They weren't fast, but there were too damn many. I didn't wait. I sprinted past a pile of broken serving trays and rounded the corner to the staff kitchen. Stainless steel counters, busted refrigerators, and shattered wine bottles lined the floor like landmines. The moonlight bled in through a high, arched window, illuminating blood trails dragged across the tile. Something moved behind the pantry door. I froze mid-stride. My finger hovered over the trigger. Slowly I crept forward. The door creaked open just enough for 2 terrified eyes to peek through.
Don't shoot! A voice hissed.
A young woman, kitchen staff. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Come out, quietly," I whispered. She slipped out, holding a chef's knife like it could actually save her. She was barefoot, bleeding from the heel, trembling, but alive. "They killed Walter," she whispered. "The head cook. They were eating him." I hid in the dry storage. "Name?" I asked. "Rena." "Okay, Rena, you want to live? Stay behind me and do exactly what I say." She nodded quickly. I handed her a radio I swiped off a dead agent 2 hours ago. We moved through the cold prep area. Every step echoed. I could hear zombies snorting and dragging their limbs down the service hall. We didn't have much time. I peeked through the swinging double doors that led into the east reception room. 2 infected wandered aimlessly near the antique furniture. One was missing half its face. The other still wore a torn staff uniform, White House logo barely visible beneath blood splatters. "Stay low, stay quiet." We moved fast, I told her. I kicked the door open and fired twice, clean headshots. The suppressed pistol barked and echoed against the high ceilings. Both bodies collapsed without a twitch. Rena gagged but didn't scream. We moved through the east wing fast, past the long red carpets and cracked presidential portraits. The smell of gunpowder and rot mixed like acid in my lungs. I reloaded and motioned for her to duck behind a toppled bookcase. Then I heard them click, 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 fast footsteps. "Run," I shouted. 2 ferals burst from the staircase behind us, snarling, eyes wild, their movements jerky and fast. I shoved Rena forward and fired as I ran. The first round missed. The second dropped 1, but the other was too close. It pounced. I turned mid-stride, grabbed it by the collar and slammed it headfirst into the wall. Bones cracked. It still snapped at me, jaw grinding. I jammed my pistol under its chin and pulled the trigger. Its head snapped back and sprayed the ceiling with black-red mist. "Move," I growled, and we kept running. We reached the green room. Furniture was overturned, curtains ripped. Blood handprints stained the mint wallpaper. A zombie in a Secret Service jacket reached for Rena from under the grand piano. I kicked its wrist away and dropped a round through its skull. She screamed this time. I spun and grabbed her mouth.
"Quiet. Do you want the whole damn building on us?"
Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she nodded. The White House was no longer a stronghold. It was a haunted maze crawling with death, and we were nowhere near the exit. We ducked into a security side room, monitor screen shattered, radios silent. I grabbed 2 more mags from a fallen agent's belt and handed Rena his taser. "Better than nothing," I muttered. Then I heard it again, the horde, coming from the western corridor. The groaning was louder now, more guttural, like they could smell us. I shoved open the emergency door and led her out into the rose garden. Moonlight washed over the path. The place looked like hell, hedges trampled, rose petals soaked in blood, and 3 infected staggering through the bushes toward us. "Stay close," I told her. I pulled my rifle from the sling on my back, aimed and let it rip. 3 shots, 3 skulls popped. We sprinted through the garden toward the west wing. I radioed anyone listening. "This is Agent James. I've got a civilian. We're trying to reach the motor pool. Anyone receiving, respond. Nothing but static." No one was coming. We were on our own. The corridor exploded in gunfire. I'd been running on instinct, half guided by muscle memory from years of drills. But none of those drills prepared me for sprinting through the east wing of the White House while rotting corpses stumbled through shattered windows behind me. I dropped to a knee and squeezed off 3 rounds, 2 headshots, 1 clean jaw removal. The third zombie, still moving, tripped over its own guts and collapsed. I didn't wait to confirm the kill. I vaulted over a fallen table and kept moving. "Clear on the right!" I shouted back. Tony, former military-turned-aide, was behind me with a sword-off in hand. He was wheezing bad, bleeding from the shoulder, but still moving. He slammed the barrel of the shotgun into a female infected's chest and pulled the trigger. She blasted back into a Lincoln portrait, blood splattering across Honest Abe's face. "We're running low," he grunted. I knew. I had maybe 4 mags left and I was trying to ration my shells. My blade was sticky with gore and nearly dulled from overuse. Still, we pressed on. We had one mission now, get to the armory in the sub-basement. The infected swarmed faster now. They weren't just wandering aimlessly anymore. They were getting smarter, funneling us, pinning us in. One lunged from a broken vent above. I heard the metal creak and turned just in time to catch a face full of blood-stained rags. I stabbed upward without thinking. My blade sank into mushy throat flesh and lodged in the spine. The body collapsed on top of me. "James!" Tony dragged it off while I caught my breath. "They're learning," I muttered. We reached a heavy steel door marked Sub-Basement Access, Authorized Personnel Only. I slammed the access code on the keypad. Nothing error. "Locked. Backup code?" Tony asked. "Override's gone." Systems fried. I drew my last breaching charge from my vest. "Stand back." I slapped the charge on the hinges and ducked. The hallway lit orange for a half second, then deafening bang. The door caved inward. We stepped into pitch blackness. My flashlight flicked on. Concrete walls, low ceiling, red emergency lights flickering uselessly. It smelled like mildew and copper. This wasn't part of any public tour. I led us down past storage lockers, overturned carts, smashed cameras. When we hit the main corridor, I saw them, National Guard bodies torn apart, rifles bent like toys. And ahead, the armory. "Almost there," I whispered. Then came the growl, deep, gurgling, animalistic. We turned together and saw it crawl from the shadows, bigger than the others. Pale green skin stretched over bone, teeth like glass shards, eyes gone white, a bloater. "Move!" I shouted. We split in opposite directions as the thing roared and charged. I fired twice. It barely flinched. Tony slid under a desk and popped up on the other side, hitting it with buckshot. It stumbled, then kept coming. I reached for my incendiary grenade, last one. The grenade clanked near its feet. Half a second, then boom. Fire swallowed it. It wailed like a dying bear, then dropped, twitching and bubbling. I exhaled. We entered the armory, rows of weapons, ammo crates, tactical gear, like Christmas morning for warfighters. I grabbed 2 fresh rifles, 3 boxes of shells, and a sidearm upgrade. Tony swapped out his bloody coat for a Kevlar plate carrier. I grabbed a comms radio. "Mayday, this is Agent James Connor. White House compromised. Repeat, White House compromised. Requesting evac or surviving response units. Anyone copy?" Static. Then a voice, low, strained. "James, this is Riley. We're holed up at the Capitol building. Maybe 6 of us left. Barely you alive?" "Affirmative." I got one more with me. "Making our way there." "Copy. Bring guns, lots of them." I turned to Tony. "Time to move." Back up the corridor, we returned to the surface. Only now, the White House lawn looked like a battlefield. Helicopters crashed. Smoke plumed over the National Mall. Shadows moved along the gate. The sun hadn't even fully risen. I looked at the dome in the distance. "Capitol Hill. We fight our way through," I said. Tony racked the shotgun. "Then let's raise some hell. Monuments of the dead." I crouched behind a rusted Humvee at the base of the Lincoln Memorial steps, heart pounding against my ribs like a riot shield under fire. The dawn sky cracked open in streaks of ash and gold, casting a grim spotlight over the National Mall. The reflecting pool was no longer a mirror to history, just a trough of blood, torn limbs, and floating rot. The president grunted behind me, jawless, chained and burdened with bags stuffed with ammo, medical kits, and a cracked radio that hadn't picked up signal in days. I kept the chain tight around his neck. He dragged his feet like a stubborn mule, sniffing at the air like he still had a purpose. Part of me wanted to leave him. The other part, I think I liked having something worse than me on a leash. From across the mall, the snarl started again. Dozens of silhouettes, some in tattered tourist shirts, others still in half-ripped uniforms, poured down the steps of the Washington Monument like ants from a kicked mound. I rose and opened fire. The first 3 dropped fast, headshots clean. My suppressor spat smoke as I pulled back toward the statues. One of the zombies, a former Marine by the look of the rotting name tag, took 2 to the chest and kept charging until I slammed the butt of my rifle into his jaw. Teeth scattered across the concrete like broken promises. I dragged the president toward the Lincoln statue and ducked into the shadows. The great stone man sat unmoved, watching over the end of days. I reloaded behind his boot, the floor sticky with whatever had oozed from the last group that tried to hold this position. There was a sudden crash to my right. 2 infected tourists smashed through the glass of the visitor center and came crawling out on all 4s. One lunged at the president. I yanked the chain, spinning him into the way. The zombie bit down on the old man's shoulder, confused by the lack of flesh to chew through. I took the chance and shot both in the head. Still useful, I muttered, nodding at the walking corpse chained to me. He groaned back, face twitching like he understood. I scanned the reflecting pool. More were coming, too many. My best shot was to reach the Smithsonian metro station. Underground was my only hope now. The surface was suicide. I sprinted, dragging the undead mule through the blood-soaked mall. Bullets whistled past me, not from the infected, but someone else. Gunshots controlled, precise. Someone alive. I ducked behind a toppled statue of Frederick Douglass, rolling over and peeking through the bronze curls. A sniper. Roof of the National Museum of African American History. Female. Tight grip, aimed at me. She held fire. I waved. "Friendly," she shouted back. "Keep moving." South tunnel's open. I didn't hesitate. We tore across the grass, weaving between bodies. The president's dragging feet slowed us, but I wasn't about to drop my supply mule now. A small fire burned near the metro entrance. Makeshift barricades, spikes. Spray paint on the walls read, "Sanctuary closed." I didn't care. I barreled through the first set of stairs and was immediately hit with the stench, piss, rot, smoke, and death. But no growls, not yet. I clicked on my flashlight and held my rifle high. The president followed behind me like a ghost with purpose. As we entered the lower platform, I heard movement from the dark tunnel. Too slow, a group of infected stumbled out of the darkness. Old DC residents, now shells with eyes that glowed like distant embers. Their fingernails scraped against tile, their heads tilted in unison. Hunters, smart ones. I backed up the stairs, firing down. Each shot echoed like thunder, lighting up their snarling faces in bursts of muzzle flash. I took out 4, then 5. Then the magazine was empty. I reached for another. Nothing left in the belt. I looked down at the president, still holding the bag. I tore it open, found 3 mags, shoved one in, and kept firing. The last of them fell into the tracks, headless and twitching. The sniper came sliding down the stairs behind me. "You brought that thing with you?" she barked, pointing at the president. "He's carrying my crap." She looked him over, then nodded. Fair enough, we didn't exchange names. Didn't need to. We were the last remnants of a city that once ruled the free world. Now it was ruled by the dead. We collapsed behind a concrete barrier, breathing like animals that had outrun extinction. "You got a plan?" she asked. I looked at the blood on my boots, the chain still wrapped tight around my wrist, and the lifeless moon that was finally disappearing behind the Capitol. "Yeah," I said, "we go south." Tracks to nowhere. The metro tunnel stretched out like the throat of some ancient beast, swallowing light, air, and hope the deeper we moved. Every step echoed back 100-fold, and every echo made me grip my rifle tighter. I moved first, the sniper followed. Behind us, the president dragged his mutilated limbs, the chain rattling like a ghost's whisper. His head twitched every few steps, sensing things I couldn't, or maybe remembering who he once was. I didn't care anymore. As long as he held the bag, he had a purpose. The walls were lined with graffiti and blood. Some of the messages looked fresh. Others looked like they'd been written in desperation. Pleas for help, names of the dead, arrows pointing nowhere. A red one caught my eye. "They're faster in the dark." I flicked off my flashlight, let my eyes adjust. If the monsters were faster in the dark, I wasn't about to give them a beacon. "Why south?" the sniper whispered behind me. "Better chance of surviving in Virginia suburbs than the war zone up here," I muttered. "DC's lost. Whole damn beltway's a graveyard." She didn't argue. Halfway between the Smithsonian and L'Enfant Plaza, we ran into a collapsed section of tunnel. Concrete pancaked over the rails like the city had finally given up. We had to detour through a service hallway, tight and winding, with water dripping from rusted pipes above. That's where we heard the growls. And not one, a chorus. We froze, then I raised my rifle and pushed forward. The hallway widened suddenly and opened into what used to be an underground storage terminal. Crates, janitorial carts, and an old golf cart sat half submerged in ankle-high water. At least 10 zombies loomed on the far side, half drowned and swaying. They hadn't seen us yet, but the president groaned loud. Every head turned. "Down!" I yelled. They charged. I fired first, clean burst to the head. The sniper dropped to one knee beside me and picked them off like it was target practice. The tunnel filled with smoke, screams, and splashes. One came close, too close, and I jammed my knife up under its chin until the blade lodged into the skull. My ears rang, blood sprayed my shirt, and I kept firing. When it was over, we stood in silence, breath catching like rusted gears. One of the infected still twitched. I stomped its skull into the concrete until it stopped. "Thanks for that, Mr. President," I spat, yanking the chain and forcing the zombie forward. We pressed on. At L'Enfant Plaza, we reached a functioning terminal. Powered by a small generator someone must have left running in the early days. Lights flickered on as we stepped through the shattered glass doors. And that's when we saw them survivors. 4 of them, ragged, armed, and scared. They raised weapons until they saw our faces and our chain-bound mule. One of them shouted, "You brought that thing in here?" "He's harmless," I said flatly. "And useful. You're insane." "Probably," I replied, "but we're still alive." They didn't trust us, not fully, but they led us into their barricade, piled benches, vending machines, and a flipped security desk. One of the survivors was a medic. She patched up my arm where a walker had grazed me. Said her name was Bree. "You really dragging the president around like a damn pet?" she asked. "Beats carrying the weight myself." She smirked, but I could see the fatigue behind her eyes. They'd been down here for days, maybe weeks, waiting for someone. Anyone. Their radio was busted. Their food was low, hope was gone. I looked at my sniper companion. "We can't stay," she nodded. "You lead, I'll cover." We gathered our things. Bree and her crew decided to follow. They figured whatever chance we had was better than dying in a tunnel of ghosts. As we climbed to the street level, dawn broke again over the shattered bones of DC. I peeked out. Still infested, still burning, still home to the dead. But we moved forward anyway. I tugged the chain and the president groaned. "Come on," I muttered. "We're not done yet." Sniper's nest. By noon, we reached the National Mall, moving fast between broken museums and overturned food trucks. The sniper, Riley, had taken point. The others trailed behind, barely making a sound. Even the president's groans were muffled under a ripped museum banner I'd tied around his head. Ahead of us, the Washington Monument jutted into the gray sky like a cracked tooth. Its base was surrounded by tents, burned-out cars, and rotting corpses. We kept to the shadows, weaving through the ruins. Suddenly, a bullet smacked into the ground a foot from my boot. "Sniper!" Riley yelled, diving behind a rusted hot dog stand. We scattered, me dragging the zombie president down with a chain yank so hard he collapsed face first into a pile of bones. "Eyes up!" I shouted, scanning rooftops. "Lincoln Memorial, upper left!" Another shot rang out, hitting one of the survivors in the thigh. She screamed and dropped. Blood gushed out. "Smoke!" Riley tossed a canister, and a plume of white fog swallowed the field. We moved under cover. I reached the injured woman, Tasha, hauled her over my shoulder, and bolted behind a flipped metro bus. Riley tapped my shoulder. "I'm going up. Cover me." I nodded and laid down fire toward the memorial, forcing the shooter to duck. She vanished behind the ruins, silent and swift. Minutes crawled. Gunshots echoed from above. Then silence, then a scream. Then Riley's voice in my earpiece. "Nest is clear. One guy gone now." We regrouped. Tasha was pale, barely conscious, but stable. Riley returned holding a scoped rifle. Nutjob had tally marks all over his bunker. He was hunting for sport, she said. I clenched my jaw. He picked the wrong prey. We moved again, this time tighter, more alert. Between the mall and the Capitol building, the streets were overrun. Every few feet we had to shoot through clusters of undead. Blood splattered the marble steps of the National Gallery. Statues were headless, barricades crumbled. We ducked into the Air and Space Museum for cover. Inside, the silence was worse than the noise. Planes hung suspended like ghosts, and everything smelled like death and kerosene. Then the shuffling started. I clicked my flashlight on and saw at least 30 of them. "Back!" I shouted, but the doors slammed behind us. We were locked in. The dead moved from all directions, pouring down from staircases and crawling out of display rooms. We were cornered. Riley took high ground on a fallen exhibit and laid down cover fire. I swung my rifle around and started dropping them one by one. The others formed a circle near the lunar module, fighting with knives, pipes, whatever they had. I heard the chain rattle behind me, forgot about him. The president. He moaned and wandered straight into the horde. They ignored him, didn't even flinch. He was one of them, and they knew it. "Go!" I yelled to the crew. They won't attack him. Use him to distract. They pushed forward, shoving past walkers that paused to examine our undead mule. I reloaded and emptied another clip into the nearest group. Blood painted the exhibit walls. We broke through the side emergency exit, pouring into the alley as alarms shrieked behind us. Smoke billowed out the door. Riley slammed it shut, jamming it with a steel pole. "Everyone good?" I asked, scanning the group. 3 of the original 4 survivors remained. Bree was still holding on. Tasha was half conscious but alive, and the president, still stumbling along like a pack mule with no soul. "We can't keep this up," Bree gasped. "We need somewhere quiet, high ground. Rest." I looked up at the Capitol dome in the distance, cracked and weather-worn. "Then we finish this," I said. We reached the Capitol. Tonight, thunder cracked in the sky. The storm was coming back, and with it, more than just rain. The Capitol siege. The sky split open as we reached Constitution Avenue. Rain poured like judgment, washing blood and filth from the marble sidewalks. Thunder cracked again, echoing across the empty city like artillery. The Capitol loomed ahead, battered, scorched, but still standing. "This is it," I said, gripping my rifle tighter. The president groaned behind me, rain dripping from the tattered banner wrapped around his face. The chain between us tugged like a leash on a devil. Riley scanned the second-story windows with her new scope. "No movement, but that doesn't mean it's empty." It wasn't. As we stepped onto the Capitol lawn, the smell hit us. Rot, smoke, something chemical. Dozens of tents surrounded the base of the stairs, ripped open like someone had tried to claw their way out. Some had succeeded. Zombies milled about aimlessly, heads twitching in the rain. Some wore security uniforms. One had a tattered Senate badge. We crouched behind a rusted SUV. The survivors, Bree, Tasha, and Marquez, were soaked, trembling, and dead quiet. "How are we playing this?" Riley asked, wiping water from her scope. "We ghost through the tents," I said. "Quiet, surgical. We don't fire unless we have to." Bree pulled out a kitchen knife she'd kept since the Smithsonian. "Let's dance then." We moved in. The first kill was clean. A walker in a hazmat suit, missing an arm, lunged too slow. Riley buried her blade in its temple. No sound, just a wet snap. We continued through the maze of canvas and collapsed poles, rain muffling our steps. Then Marquez tripped. His boot caught a metal pole, and the crash was like a grenade going off. Growls erupted from every direction. "Move!" I yelled, swinging the rifle off my shoulder and firing into the closest pack. The dead came fast, all of them. Rain-soaked, bloated, howling, we ran. Bree and Riley took the left flank, carving a path up the marble steps. I stayed back with Tasha and Marquez, trying to keep the president mule from falling behind. He stumbled, one foot tangled in a tent rope. I yanked the chain. "Move." He gurgled and stumbled forward. A walker tackled Marquez from the side, biting into his neck before I could fire. Tasha screamed. I shot the walker, then another, then another. Too many. I grabbed Tasha and shoved her toward the steps. "Go!" Marquez was gone, already twitching, his body jerking like a puppet cut from strings. We reached the top of the Capitol steps, shoving through broken doors into the Grand Rotunda. It was worse inside, bodies everywhere, bullet holes in the murals, blood on the columns, and the worst part, a message sprayed in red paint on the far wall. "We were the last." The doors stay closed. "We're not alone," Riley whispered, raising her rifle. A flashlight flickered from a hallway. We aimed. A man in riot gear stepped into the light, unshaven blood on his chest. "You're too late," he said, voice cracking. "They breached the tunnels yesterday. Everyone's gone." "How many?" I asked. "Hundreds, maybe thousands. They came from underground subways, sewers." Behind me, the president moaned. The man's eyes dropped to the chain, then back to me. Is that? I cut him off. "He carries our gear." He didn't argue. We barricaded the doors as best we could. Riley checked the upper floors. Bree collapsed against a pillar, breathing hard. Tasha sat in a puddle of blood that wasn't hers. "Is this it?" she asked. "Are we done?" I didn't answer. "Not yet." Rain hammered the dome overhead. Tomorrow we'd head for the tunnels, but tonight we rest. If the Capitol held this long, maybe it had one more night in it. And if it didn't, I'd put a bullet in every last one of them until it did. Tunnels of the Damned. By morning, the capital was cold, silent, and almost peaceful. Rain still tapped at the skylight overhead, but the thunder had moved on. Just like the war, it had shifted. Underground. We geared up quietly. Riley replaced her rifle's clip. Tasha tied her boots. I cinched the chain tighter around the president's neck, making sure the gear bag stayed secure. He staggered with each step, mouth gaping like he remembered what it meant to breathe. We entered the basement with flashlights and caution. The air was thick with mildew and rot. Concrete walls closed in on us as we passed security checkpoints, shattered glass, and old vending machines that buzzed like flies. "Tunnel access is this way," the riot gear guy, Garrett, told us. This used to be the emergency evacuation route for Congress. Now it's a slaughterhouse. He wasn't wrong. The deeper we went, the more we saw. Shredded clothes, piles of gnawed bones, scraps of congressional IDs, blood smeared on the wall in handprints. One red scrawl read, "They burrowed in." Our flashlights hit something, a barricade of chairs and overturned desks. Useless, torn open like paper. Then we heard it, the shuffle. Not one, dozens. "Hold," I whispered. From the shadows they emerged. Some still in staff uniforms, some without faces. One dragged a crutch. Another still had a child's toy fused to its wrist. The Capitol daycare had been compromised too. Riley fired first, one shot clean to the skull. Then the tunnel screamed. They charged, crawling up the walls, dropping from pipes, hands reaching from every direction. I fired. Bree fired. Tasha screamed, unloading her entire clip into the dark. Garrett pulled a flare, lighting the ceiling in blood-red glow. It made them look even worse, like demons. We fought in inches. One grabbed my leg. The president, or what was left of him, lunged forward and bit into it, tearing the zombie away like a rabid dog. I stared at him. Maybe some part of him still knew who I was. "Keep moving," I shouted. We retreated deeper, every hallway feeling like a grave. The map Garrett gave us led to a hatch, an old security exit under the Library of Congress. If we could reach it, we had a chance to escape the tunnels and make it to the river. We ran. Riley slipped. I covered her. Tasha reloaded with trembling hands. Bree was bleeding, shoulder ripped open, but still swinging that crowbar like a bat out of hell. Garrett took a bite to the throat before he could scream. I shot him mid-fall. We kicked open the hatch. Sunlight barely. Grey dawn spilled in through the cracked metal door. "Out," I yelled. One by one, we crawled out onto broken cobblestone behind the library. My knees hit gravel. I turned and slammed the door shut, jamming a pipe through the hinges. The banging started immediately, dozens of them, maybe more. We stood there gasping, bleeding, alive, only 5 of us now. Riley, Tasha, Bree, me, and the president standing motionless, blood dripping from his chin, gear still strapped to his twisted shoulders. Tasha looked at me. "Now what?" I looked toward the Potomac. "We go south." "To Atlanta?" Riley asked. I nodded. That's the last whisper of hope left. If that fails, we make our own safe zone. A plane passed overhead, no markings, no sound besides the wind. Someone was still flying. Someone still had power. I didn't know who, but I knew we weren't done. The Capitol fell, but we didn't, not yet. And that's how it ends. For now. The Capitol is gone. The city's in ruins. But James, he's still breathing, still fighting. And with the president dragging gear like a blood-soaked mule, the mission ain't over. Southbound to Atlanta, where whispers say a safe zone might exist. But nothing's guaranteed in a world like this. If you've made it this far, you're one of the survivors too. Make sure you subscribe to Whispers Between Worlds for the next chapter in the apocalypse. And remember, the dead walk, but the story runs deeper.